It amazes me how you think you've escaped or forgotten or moved on, and then it lassoes your heart and mind. For every good thing, there's always a bad one, like a trade or a price. You can never have enough in the bank. Yesterday, I met an old friend, said Mary as the bottle of Malbec was poured. Our tradition was to keep any interesting gossip until after our evening activity. This time it had been a ghastly Jude Law film, and laughter had propelled us from one side of the Fulham Road to the Café Rouge on the other. The wine was our reward. She said it was an old friend from her teenage days, pausing for effect. I smiled at her like a proud pageant mother, beaming encouragement at questionable talent. Jackie Bates, she said. Here in London after all these years. She was shopping in Selfridges. Only then did Mary smile as if she'd played the Queen's Gambit. This was a precious nugget among the dross. I glanced at our reflection in the cafe window and saw two stylish 40-something women sipping wine under an umbrella. Far away from Coventry as you could get, but not too far. What could be wrong with this picture? Oh, plenty. Plenty wrong, but more of that to come. It was years since I'd seen Jackie. She was a fixed coordinate in our shared past. How did she look? I asked casually. Very well, Mary said. She looks exactly like she did when we were 18, except nowadays she's wearing a fat suit. We both laughed. So, Mary continued, Jackie has finally split from Johnny Dark. They've been together for 20 years. Worst mistake of her life, marrying him, apparently. A knife twisted somewhere in my heart with the mention of Johnny Dark, even after all these years. Johnny Dark. So, he left her. I knew he would. He chose the wrong girl. Jackie even apologised, Mary said. She always felt that she'd stolen from under me and always felt bad about it. Mary told her it's all forgotten. As I examined Mary's face, I knew this was true. Some people can sail through life not noticing the danger that surrounds us all the time. She was fortunate. I was lucky to have her as a friend. I didn't deserve her. I'll have to give you some background before you judge me, because you will. Jackie Bates was my best friend. Mary was part of the gang too, but she was always friend number 2. When we were 17, Mary got herself a steady boyfriend, Johnny Clark, a football friend of her older brother. Johnny Dark, we called him. To us, he was a bad boy. Spiky hair, leather jacket, motorbike, a rebel. He gave off the air of something not quite pure. Jackie and I were mesmerised by him. He was a man when all the others were merely teenage boys. Mary was smitten, but I could sense he wasn't going to be content with her for long. He wanted much more than a good Catholic girl like Mary could offer. If he needed a suitable girlfriend, I was ready. This was my secret, like a hidden present under the Christmas tree. It was a fantasy, but I sensed some interest on the rare occasions Johnny and I spoke. For Jackie's 18th, we all went to the local pub and proceeded to get drunk. This didn't take long or much. After 5 glasses of cider, I was wasted and threw up spectacularly in the toilets. Afterwards, I consoled myself with glasses of water and a visit to the garage next door for chewing gum. Outside, I sobered up as the July night was closing in. Suddenly, Johnny Dark was in front of me. Hey, you all right? He asked. And then, I've noticed you've been watching me." That voice melted me. Deep and warm. "Yes," I smiled, looking slowly into his eyes. I couldn't think of anything to say. This was the first time I'd been alone with him. I couldn't believe he'd noticed me. Ordinary, boring me. Then he said he wanted to ask me something. I nodded and he led me to the back of the car park where there were no lights. And we did it. When he finished, I rested my head on his shoulder. I wanted to cry, but not because I was sad. I was happy. I was the happiest I'd ever been. Even now. A shining moment. Isn't that mad? I asked if I'd see him again, and he said yes. I watched him stroll back towards the pub. I felt lightheaded. I lingered and enjoyed my conquest. Had that really happened? Had anyone seen us? I looked around. I didn't care. Johnny was going to be mine. Our future stretched out together, entwined. I cleaned myself up and went to the ladies. Mary was crying. She knows, I thought. He must have told her. It was fast. I held her hand, practicing my explanation. I would say Johnny and I were meant for each other, that we understood each other. She'd get over it and thank me later. But I couldn't say the words. We went back to the bar. Johnny was sitting next to Jackie. He said, "We're off," as we approached. "I'm giving the birthday girl a lift home." Jackie smiled, and as they left, she turned her face towards me and raised an eyebrow as if to say, "I've won." But I couldn't be sure. "She stole my boyfriend," I said, immediately realising my mistake. I looked at Mary, but she hadn't heard me. I ran back to the toilets. Now it was my turn to sob. We lingered at the bar for a bit, and then the two of us made our way home, silently, alone with our thoughts. Jackie called me the next day, but I got my mother to say I was too sick to come to the phone. We spoke when necessary at school, but we were never close again. I burned the cards she sent me for birthday and Christmas. After college, they got engaged and finally married, and seemed to have it all. Mary found a new boyfriend, and this one was more suitable. She accepted the role of friend number one that was now vacant, and was grateful for what she called my loyalty. I kept track of them like a stalker. They moved to New York, and she became a success, as did Johnny. Stories of drugs, financial problems, and the regular split-ups filtered back to us via Jackie's family, who had never approved. When I feel low, I wonder if he even knew who I was that night. But I know that's not true. I wonder if he ever told Jackie. Probably not. Still our secret. Back in the real world, Mary produced Jackie's business card. I hesitated, and as I didn't reach for it, she placed it delicately on the table. I could feel my face burn. Was it the wine or the shame of the past? I began to formulate some words of explanation, but nothing materialised. Instead, I said, "Don't let Jackie near your husband." I laughed, but Mary didn't. "And Johnny?" I asked, like an afterthought. My heart raced as I waited for the answer. She said he was living in LA with some 18-year-old. Some people never change. He never was for you, Mary. It was a lucky escape. We finished off the dregs of our wine, and Mary sailed off to the ladies. As she walked off, I allowed myself to imagine a reunion with Jackie. We would catch up on all that had happened to us over the years, our lives and our choices, and hear firsthand about Johnny. I would forgive her. It was tempting, but no. I was trapped in a slow dance with the curse of the lost opportunity. My lost love. Our waiter appeared, fresh-faced with black hair. He reminded me of the son Johnny and I could have had. As I paid him, I noticed a faint whiff of nicotine on his shirt. Do you have a lighter or a box of matches? I said. It's no smoking here, he said, embarrassed to have to tell a woman old enough to be his mother what the rules were. It's not for a cigarette, I replied. I met his gaze and noticed how handsome his face was. Just perfect, like Johnny. Like the Johnny I sometimes conjure up when I sleep with my husband. He handed me his lighter and I picked up Jackie's business card. I lit the card, let it burn, and dropped it on the ground. Thank you, I said. You should give up. They'll kill you in the end, they say. Eat you up from the inside. I gave him a cash tip, and as he walked away, I remembered, anything can eat you up from the inside if you let it. And I did let it. Mary arrived back, and I stood up, my body stiff from the cool night breeze. Back to the humdrum, I say. Back to the husbands and children, Mary echoes. Back to the light, leaving the dark behind me.